A good safety record doesn't happen by accident. People have to work hard and stay alert for possible situations that may lead to injury. Unsafe acts and unsafe conditions must become a thing of the past. For the most part, injuries just don't happen. Safety at work and at home must be a priority 52 weeks a year. It's up to you to make wise decisions concerning safety. In the next few moments, we are going to interview employees and employees' families who have felt the pain of injury and death caused by accidents. Many of these injuries occur much too often and are, for the most part, preventable. It's important that each of us realize that injuries can change our lives and our families' lives forever. Dreams can be shattered in less than a second. When someone gets careless and fails to anticipate injury, from their own actions or the actions of someone else, devastating results can be the outcome. Let's talk with some present and past employees who have felt the physical as well as emotional pain caused by accidents.
My name's Greg Allen. I'm a turn coordinator, screen and sampler for the Coke plant. I was raised in Springville, just a short distance from the Geneva steel mill. When I was 12 years old, I was asked by my grandmother to do some yard work for her. And I was out mowing the lawn and cutting out weeds, and that day I did something that changed my life forever. I was out hoeing weeds around her shrubs, and I was using a grubbing hoe, and I swung the grubbing hoe and come down on a rock, and a piece of metal chipped off the hoe and went into my right eye. It didn't really hurt at that time. It just kind of felt like I'd got dirt in my eye. And when I opened my eye, I had two little tiny bubbles of blood obscuring my vision. And I knew at that time I had done something seriously wrong. I went home and I told my dad what had happened, and he looked into my right eye. And after looking at my eye for a minute, says, "We better go see the eye doctor." He says, "It looks like you've got a small cut on the outside of your eye." And so we went to the eye doctor, and after he'd looked at me for a little while, he made the comment that I was lucky that I could see it all out of my right eye. He said that the piece of metal had gone in through the cornea and lodged in the middle of my eye. He said it just missed the lens. He says if it would have hit the lens, you would have been instantly blinded. And they planned to do surgery the next day. Went in and had surgery done, and they took the piece of metal out. And they patched both eyes. I laid in the hospital for 12 days with both eyes patched on my back, couldn't move. After they'd taken the patches off, my vision had gone from 20/20 to 2400. If I could say one thing, that if I'd had a pair of sunglasses on or a pair of safety glasses, I'd probably never had this accident to begin with. I feel that safety glasses are real important. When we were hired on at Geneva, we were each given a pair of safety glasses. I know that these safety glasses have saved my eyes from getting a lot of particles in them. We only have two eyes. Let's take care of them and wear our safety glasses.
Greg was lucky. He could have lost his eyesight in both eyes. Whenever we are performing a job that requires us to wear safety glasses, we should have them on. Now let's hear from a former employee, Blaine Wright, who is retired from Geneva Steel.
My name is Blaine Wright. I worked in the Coke plant at Geneva for 36.5 years and retired about 5 years ago. I liked and enjoyed working in the Coke plant, but about 6 months after I had started at Geneva, there was a terrible accident. My father was killed. He was crushed between the door extractor and a door jamb at the repair shop. He was working as a millwright. I'd like to explain, maybe if I could, some of the feelings that you have in an accident like this. It was around the deer hunting season, and we had just went up into the hills and prepared our camp, and I was coming swing shift, and they pulled me off of the bus at number 1 gate and informed me of my father's death, and it was quite traumatic. I at first started out at Geneva to work part-time, and I was anticipating going to school to some engineering degree, and with my father's death that all went awry, and I continued to work there at Geneva. I would like to explain just a little bit the feeling that you have when you lose a loved one. To this day, I can still picture my father on the batteries, alive and well one day and dead the next. I know I would hate to be the cause of an accident or be in an accident where someone would have to tell my loved ones that I was either dead or maimed. How can anyone explain that to someone that they love?
Blaine will remember that day for the rest of his life. Blaine tells us this story to help us realize that tragedy can happen in a split second. Tragedy that can change your life and your family's life forever. In our steel mill, any accident is more than we would prefer to have. We have injuries that are very similar in nature. Some of these injuries will be highlighted in this video and future safety videos. You will hear from those employees who were injured and what they could have done to prevent those injuries from occurring. Employees have been severely injured because they failed to properly lock out a piece of equipment. People fail to lock out for a variety of reasons. These may include limited knowledge concerning the equipment, in a hurry to complete the task at hand, trusting someone else to lock out, and they may be unfamiliar with safety rules. Let's talk to 2 employees who were injured because of improper lockout.
My name's Larry Stanton, and I'd like to talk to you today a little about safety and lockout procedure, and a little about an accident I had in 1985 because of improper lockout. I was a motor inspector in a coke plant for 20 years. I felt very comfortable with my job and my knowledge of the trade. I was also a safety representative for the union for a while, so I'm very well at safety and what needs to be done for safety. But we had a major foul-up on the 27th of June. I'm lucky to be here. I believe if the accident would have happened 1,000 times, I maybe would have survived 1 out of 1,000, and that's what I did. This transformer breaker sits in a cubicle of about 2 by 3, and the bus bars were loose. And I proceeded with a socket wrench to tighten the bus bars up. And I tightened the bottom 3 sets of bus bars, tightened the top 2. And I started on a 3rd, and as I kept coming around, my socket wrench would slip off. And so I turned to my partner and asked him to get his left arm up in there and see if he could hold that crescent wrench as a backup. And he got up in there, and I got back into the cubicle from my waist up, and I'd had my safety glasses and hard hat off because it was so confined in there and steamy and hot I couldn't see. And as I started to tighten the bolt on the last bus bar, of course I assumed everything was dead like we all did. And as I come across and fused across onto the second middle bus bar and engulfed me in a fireball. And I guess most people have seen an electrical arc, and that's what it is. It's burnt air, it's ionized gas. and then engulfed the whole cubicle and myself in it. I remember as I come out of the cubicle and went to the floor, I remember thinking if I could just let this fireball burn itself out, let something kick out, substation somewhere's kick this breaker out. And if I could see, I felt to myself I'll be all right. There was a movie by Peter Sellers years ago in which Inspector Clouseau, in which he changed makeup all the time. And I remembered when I lifted up from the mirror and looked from the drinking fountain, I looked in the mirror, my face reminded me of that movie where his face just melts away. It was a wax face and it melted, and my nose was hanging down here and a chunk of my ear was gone. It was all mixed with the coke, the black from the coke plant and the burnt hair. My hair was all gone, my mustache was burnt. The eyelashes were gone. But I spent 21 days at the Utah Valley Hospital. The first 2 days wasn't too bad. There was a pain, but they kept me pretty well doped up that didn't feel it too bad. My head swelled up like a basketball. My eyes closed. I couldn't see. I remember my brother coming to see me that Friday, and I could just barely see out of this left eye. And I was sitting in bed looking, and he walked past the door, and he looked in and kept walking. And he'd come back, and he looked up at the number on the door, and he looked in, and his face just dropped, because he didn't recognize me. And I says, "Hi, Den." I says, "Come on in." And he just couldn't believe it. And about the third day, we started the debleeding process, which you go down and get in a whirlpool, and you scrub your skin off, and that's when the pain starts. That's when it's awfully painful. And then they put because you have some live skin and some dead skin on your wrists and your chest and your face, that some of it wants to heal faster than the other, and some still dying. They put I can't remember the term on it. I call it, I said we had better acid at the coke plant than that would have done it. Hurt less than what they put on. But it eats the skin, and it eats all the old skin. It won't touch the new, but it eats all the old, and so that was painful. They left that on for 24 hours, and I didn't do anything except roll over and get a shot and roll back, and 3 hours later roll over and get another shot and roll back. And then I got the hives about this big around all over my body, and that lasted for 4 days. And then about 11, 12 days into it, I felt that we was making progress. I've started feeling a little better. But back to a little bit on safety. I remember years ago at U.S. Steel, there was a safety bulletin. You know, you always have these safety films or something that they're showing you. And there was a manager standing there, and in the picture was a picture of Joe the steelworker, and he had a set of wings, and he was flying off, and it says, but sir, I only had one accident. And that's what I felt like. I only had one accident at Geneva, and it about cost my life. I was very aware of safety. My knowledge was good of safety. I was maybe more aware of other people's safety than I was my own. Maybe that's from a little bit too much confidence maybe in my ability, I don't know. But I know that it caused a lot of hardship. Even today, my skin is sensitive to the wind and the cold. The sun, it kind of gets used to it, but the cold and the wind is really, really tough. And if I could say to anything to steel workers out there, I would say, make sure of your lockout. Make sure you lock it out. Make sure that whoever's with you, or whatever job you're doing, or how much pressure you're under, or understaffed, overtimed, or what, that you lock out. And you make sure that it is locked out, because it's your life. It's your safety. And it's a precious life. And I'm just thankful that I'm not worse off than I am.
Larry is lucky to be alive. Proper lockout procedures have been established to protect people's lives. When you lock out, you must notify everyone in the immediate area, identify all energy sources, neutralize all energy sources, lock out power supply with your safety lock and tag, and keep the key. Have a motor inspector check for proper lockout. Test the equipment to make sure that it cannot be energized. Let's now talk to an employee who is severely burned because he was in a hurry to complete a job and didn't follow all of the established safety guidelines.
My name's Dave Mosteller, for those of you who don't know me. I work in the coke plant. I'm an electrician. On the 8th of April this year, I was working in the area of the quench tower, and we had put in a new automated starting system for the quenchers. And we were in the process of finishing the job up. We needed to pull wiring for one light through some conduit, and to do that I needed to swing the man lift around. The job was not a really important job, but we felt like we wanted to get it done. And the man lift was needed in another area, so we were rushing. We were pushing a job that really didn't need to be pushed. And in the process of wanting to turn that man lift around, I waited for the quench car to come into the quencher. And I hollered at the quench car operator to not start the quench, but because of the noise in the area, she was unable to hear me. I shouldn't have been there. That's the big thing. I took a chance for really nobody's benefit, not even my own, just trying to get the job done, and wound up trapped in the man lift 10 feet off the ground with the quench steam. It doesn't show now, but all of the skin on my face is new. My wife, she jokes that I got a free facelift. It also burned all of the skin off my hands. There's a little bit of scarring left, and I have to wear these gloves maybe for another 5 months to reduce the scarring. The burns hurt. They hurt a lot. For those of you who have never been burned, it's a treat I don't wish on anyone. If I had it to do over again, I wouldn't have been in there, because it can't be blamed on anybody but me. The quench car operator, she couldn't help the fact that she couldn't hear me. She didn't know that I was trying to talk to her. And I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's cost my family a lot. They depend on me for my income. They depend on me for a lot of other things that I've found out. It wasn't fair to my wife to have to do the things that she had to do. Blisters are pretty ugly things. And she had a real hard time changing my dressings and all of the things that have to be done, because once you've been burned like this, it took all of the skin off the back of my hands initially, and then of course everything else was blistered, and those have to be washed and redressed twice a day to prevent infection. And it was more than she could do, because it looked so terrible and it did hurt like crazy. Is all I can say is that whatever you do, take the time to make sure that the job's done right. It's not worth what I went through. I come to work every day and I try to do a good job, but it's not worth not going home the same way I came in. So as you do your job, think about what you're going to do. Think about what might go wrong. Take your time and do it right. That's all I've got to say.
Our safe job procedures and safety rules have been created through the years to help our employees become aware of the inherent hazards associated with performing their jobs. These safety rules help to maximize the safety of the employee when they are properly followed. At times, you may think that the safety rules are written to hinder performance or are written to cause inconvenience. This could not be further from the truth. Safety rules are written to protect all workers from possible injury. Greg, Blaine, Larry, and Dave suffered because of the tragedy that occurred in each of their circumstances. Hopefully, we have learned an important lesson by having them share their painful experience with us. In closing, remember this. If you think it's true that accidents always happen to someone else, then it's also true that to someone else, you're someone else.